Hey, it's Game Hydro doing another video about Galaxy Defense Fortress TD. One video I've surprisingly seen on the, or stage I've seen on the search terms a lot is stage 5. So we're going to do a guide on how to beat stage 5. Now, obviously, we're upgraded a little bit past that, but I'm going to go with strategies that will work for you no matter what stage you're on. So let's check out the enemies that pop up on stage 5. Hit the question mark. You got the Eye of the Void, which is the kind of the iconic title boss of the game so far. So he continuously spawns mutated stingers, takes 50% less physical and electric damage. So use that to figure out what skills you should use. We got the Spike Shell Beetle, which takes more physical and fire damage. Mutated Stinger takes more fire and energy damage. Silk Hunter takes more fire damage. All right, so we obviously want to use fire damage skills here because all three of the small enemies are weak against fire and the big enemy is not strong against fire. Strong against physical and electric, yes, so we're going to avoid physical and electric skills. Strong against fire. So right now, obviously, we're far more powerful than we normally would be if we were facing a stage 5 for the first time. But I powered down my equipment as much as possible. Let's power it down a little more. Go to the gear, pick a tier 1 boot, drop the attack power. Unfortunately, I do not have a weaker tier 1 gear, but that's okay. Going over to the skills, you're probably when you play this, you're probably not going to be upgraded beyond Aeroblast, maybe Thunderbolt, maybe Beam. So if you have Thunderbolt, then be sure not to use it. Beam is a good one to use, even though it's energy damage. The fact that it targets primary enemies makes it pretty excellent. And Skyguard here is going to be your superstar because that's the one fire skill you're going to have unless somehow you're hardcore enough that you've already got the fire wheel drone. And if you're replaying this level in order to try to get a perfect clear on it sometime after beating it, then you probably are going to have the fire wheel drone, maybe the beam. So go ahead and use those. All right, stage 5, here we go. So obviously early on in the run, it's a little bit slow. So we're just gonna let our gunner do the work here. Gravity Vortex, okay. You're probably not gonna have any of these, but all right, I'm gonna hit refresh, okay? So to see if any legacy skills, older skills pop up that you're gonna be finding useful. All right, the primary legacy skill that popped up is the Disruption Drone, so we're going to go with that because there's no strengths or weaknesses to force field damage out of this batch of enemies. The boss is strong against electric, so we're going to avoid that. Aeroblast. Aeroblast is okay. It does pretty high damage and pretty low range of splash damage. Let's go with Aeroblast Shell Knockback. We want to increase the DPS here. Now, when you are playing this level, yes, your guy can shoot automatically, but in general, it's best to move him around manually and try to shoot. Let's go with the volley shot. Move him around manually and aim for the lowest enemies, especially if you got Pierce. Aim at lines of enemies. And Skyguard, of course, is the one that you really want here because Skyguard is a fire type. It's one of the earliest skills that you unlock in the game, and even as you go further in, it's one of the most valuable. Beam is nice if you have unlocked it because the beam targets the enemies automatically that are closest to the fortress. We're going to go Ignition because Ignition sets enemies on fire that get hit by the missile blast of the Sky Guard. And when they're set on fire, they take burn damage for 5 seconds. So, especially when you get Pierce, you want to move your little guy around in order to make sure he is hitting multiple enemies in a row, and that the back shot isn't just being wasted. So, piercing bullet, here we go. Now, if enemies aren't low enough on the stage yet, it's going to take a while for them, or excuse me, if enemies aren't low enough on the stage, then your gun will not fire off no matter what. So you kind of just got to wait for them to drop a bit before the gun shows up. What do we want to do? Let's go arrow blast another shell. I'm kind of curious to see what the arrow blast, how good it is once you upgrade it a little further than it starts off. But yeah, you want to do as much mob damage as possible with your guns. Now, charge activation is especially really nice because the gun gets charged for about 5 seconds, deals something like 300% damage, shoots fast. Disruption field duration, that one's nice because it does more damage, and the disruption field itself slows enemies down. Enemies hit by the disruption field have a 5% chance to be teleported back a certain distance. I typically don't go for that one because the chances are pretty low. See how the charge shot tears them apart? All right, we're almost halfway through the stage, level 11. And surprisingly, I've still got some charge. Let's go explosion range plus 30. These mobs can get pretty nasty, so anything that boosts splash damage is nice. And Sky Guard is something that is automatically targeted. It doesn't have any rhyme or reason behind the targeting. It may target enemies at the top, at the bottom. It doesn't necessarily go for like the boss or for the lowest enemy. So just keep that in mind. Let's go arrow blast plus 1. Now, if you're playing at a lower level, the level you'd probably be playing this stage for the first time at, you probably are going to want to be upgrading the beam and the Sky Guard primarily. The beam because it can keep the crowds under control. The Sky Guard because it can become a heavy splash damage weapon. Let's go over to the enemies. Strangely, it doesn't say anything about the boss here. I'll be honest, I don't remember if this is an attacking boss or not. Now, you do want to polish off the boss because the boss will give you bonuses once you beat it. So aim your gun at it manually unless you're under immediate danger. All right, there's our Sky Guard boost. Even going all the way back here, the boss is fairly weak. Or excuse me, fairly strong. Has a lot of health. And him going off screen like that makes him a little hard to get to. He's just dropping down further. And if he gets down to your fortress, he's going to start attacking. So you want to try to prevent that happening. The disruption field, great for slowing down mobs. Doesn't really do that much for slowing down bosses. Burning area is one of my favorite upgrades for the Sky Guard. Watch where the explosions hit. You can see that those little blue burning areas hit. All right, we just beat the boss. Got another arrow blast boost out of that one. So now it's just time to kill off the rest of the mobs until the level is done. And we're fairly close to that point. Let's go with a beam damage upgrade to blast through the mobs a little faster. But yeah, you can see the absolutely epic amount of damage done not only by the arrow blast, but by the burn areas. The disruption field is a good upgrade to use if you are at a point where enemies, especially mobs, are getting dangerously close to where you're at. For now, though, I'm going to keep upgrading the beam to try to blast through the mobs quickly. Because as you can see, there is a lot of them. And the beam and the sky guard are making pretty short work of them. The arrow blast, I feel like, is doing absolutely nothing right now because it has a pretty short range and it doesn't have much splash damage. Let's go explosion range plus 30. Let's make those explosions big. And as a side effect, it looks like it's making the burn area extra large too. All right, this is the last part of it. Boom. Beam and sky guard and the gun making short work of them. And level is over. So that's how you beat level 5. Pay attention to the strengths and weaknesses of the enemies. All of them are weak against fire. So spam those Skyguard upgrades as much as possible. If somehow you're at the point, if you're either replaying this level to get a perfect clear and you have the fire wheel, or you're far enough into the level, you're far enough into the game somehow to have that, then use it. Anyways, this is Game Hydro. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And check out our other Galaxy Defense videos.